welcome to another edition of the Deals for Dentists podcast, and you're in for a treat today. He needs no introduction. He's the hardest working man in dental show business, the James Brown of dentistry. Does he ever sleep? I don't think so. He's one of my heroes, the man, the myth, the legend, Dr. Howard Farran, DDS, and BFG. Thank you so much for joining the Deals for Dentists podcast, and it's an honor to have you.
Hey, it's an honor to be on your show. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, and this is actually surreal right now for me to be interviewing you. I'm so excited, and I had so many questions I want to ask you, and mainly I wanted to ask you some questions about you and your practice, and also how you can help the young dentists out there. And I have so many questions. One of the first questions I wanted to ask you, the first time I'd ever heard the word comptroller was when the ex-disgraced Governor Elliot Spitzer, got caught with the whole socks on and prostitution scandal, and then he resigned from governor, and then he campaigned to become the New York state comptroller. That was the first time I'd heard the word, and then I'd hear you mention that you have a comptroller for your office. Is that a specific job that you have one person that controls all your finances? And can you explain how that works?
Yeah, and first of all, you have to know your costs. I mean, you have your cost, your price minus cost equals profit. And what dentists try to do is they just try to do what they do, their cost, and then add some profit that they deem they're worthy of, because they're just worthy of that. You can justify anything, and then they arrive at their price. So they arrive at their price, but it's not cost plus profit equals price. It's the price that will move the product and service minus the profit you need to stay in business equals your budget. And like I was at the Delta Dental of Arizona board meeting election a couple days ago. I think it was last Friday, where I lost by 100 votes to make it onto the board. And I listened to all these dentists complaining to the CEO of Delta, Alan Alford. They're going, well, look at all my write-offs. I mean, I charge this, and you only pay this, and I have to write off that. I'm just sitting there thinking, like, what a joke. Well, why don't you drop Delta and go try to get the American to pay that? But you can just tell they're entitled. They're like, well, I did a crown, and this is my cost, and this is my price, and you didn't pay the whole thing, and I had to write it like Alan's the problem. It's like, well, there's 8 billion people I could walk up to and say, hey, I got a Lamborghini for $300,000. And they say, well, I don't have $300,000. And you're like, what? What, you have to buy this. So you need to know the price that moves. And that's what we call the equilibrium clearing price, where you can raise your price up. And as you raise your price up, price has an elastic effect on demand, and the sales start going down. I mean, you start with a $300,000 Lamborghini, but the number one selling car in America is a $30,000 car, and the number one selling car in the world is a $10,000 car. And I have, to this day, take away the DSOs, no one knows their price. You could walk into any dental office that's had a hygienist for 10 years doing the same thing. She's always in room 1. She's got a little bell around her neck because they always need to know where she's at. And she walks out of the room. She just did a recall, cleaning, exam, and bite wings. And I'll tell the doctor, how much was that? And he'll say, I don't even know. Or if he tells me the price, he'll tell me the price, but he sells it for 12 different prices on these insurance plans. And he always tell me a price, and it's usually, isn't even one of the 12 prices he sells it for. And I'll say, well, how much did you net on that? Did you net $5.18 after taxes or lose $9? He doesn't know. So, in the very beginning, my president, Lori Zalowski's been with me over 2 decades. That was her first job. I was ordering my own in-house bookkeeper because, you need a CPA. The statement of cash flow is what I need to run a business. A balance sheet, what balances your assets, balance with what you owe, your equity versus, what you have paid off, the equity versus your liability. And that's good if you're, you need that if you're going to go borrow a loan or something like that. And then the other one that everyone is obsessed with is a statement of income, your P&L, your profit and loss. But that's only prepared for a tax collector, the IRS, unless you're publicly traded the SEC. It's got artificial numbers, depreciation, deferred taxes, all this. I can't manage a company off of that. So one's for the IRS, one's for getting a loan, and I need a statement of cash flow. And so the most astute business people bring in a bookkeeper. And I think I hired Lori for like $12 an hour 2.5 decades ago. And she said, what do you want me to do? I said, well, here's where I sit. And there was 3 of us back there. There's a couple of dentists. And I said, just get yourself a chair and a terminal. And I've just got some real simple questions for you. I want to know, how much net income after taxes do I make off a cleaning, exam, a filling, a root canal? That's all I want to know. And then she starts working and digging deeper into it, and she's like, holy moly, we were on Soft Dent, which was the kingpin back then. Now it's Dentrix. And she's like, well, it's so hard because you have this dental practice management system, which has everything you do, but it's not hooked into your accounts receivable, your payables, your banking. And so we had to do everything with making Excel spreadsheets and notes. We even had a pegboard system with a flippin' pencil. And I have to tell you, it's not any better to this day because I begged Stan Bergman. I flew all the way to Melville, New York, or whatever. I begged him for half a day, and he was a good man, and he said, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to take one of my MBAs, and I'm going to put her on this project, and we're going to look into it. So she flies out. She meets with our whole team, really sharp lady, MBA, and she goes and does a survey of 1,000 dentists, just like this Delta vote. I lost on this weekend to dentists that, one of the dentists, 2 of them don't even have a website. It's like, I don't care. It's not my way or the highway, but dentists never cease to amaze me how every time they shoot a bullet, the first one goes in their right foot and the second one goes in their left foot. She surveyed 1,000 people, 1,000 dentists, and asked them. I had all my wish list, and she had asked them what they wanted. Changing the font size was like number 1. Changing the color of their notes, voice-activated perio. And I read that list, and I just said to myself, Howard, you've got to keep lowering your expectations of what you expect your fellow colleagues to do. Because at the end of the day, they're just humans. They just want supper. They want to go home and eat some pizza, watch a ball game. I know I take this serious as can be. And people, so dentists are, they're crazy. They don't want a dentist with an MBA sitting on the Delta board. 300 people voted for this one person and 200 voted for me. It's like, all right, I hope they serve you well. I'm not saying anything's wrong with anybody, but I just come with an astute dental business. That's the fork in the road. Dentistry, in my mind, has 2 components. It has business and dentistry. And if you take away the business, you don't have dentistry. I could go out there and sell a root canal billet and crown for $1 million and no one would have access to oral health. So you got to so there's a lot of moving parts in this thing. And I would start, and every dentist I know pays all this money to a CPA. They're like, this guy's the best guy ever. He's the best. In fact, he specializes in dentistry. That's the best move, is to get someone that only does dentistry. But even those guys, I'll say, okay, well, you just did a crown in that room. You're in there an hour and a half. How much money did you net? They had no idea. And it could be solved in 8 seconds. I switched from soft dent to open dental only because it's open. You can actually, and that was started by a dentist in Oregon who could not believe that Dentrix wouldn't let him access his own data. And then they told him it wasn't his data. He's like, I'm entering all my patients' names and addresses and all that, and it's not my data. And they said, no, it's not. And they programmed all these firewalls to keep him out of there. So that was the birth of Open Dental. And I only went with that because now, if anybody is going to tie Quicken, QuickBooks Pro, and TurboTax. Every dentist wants to know how much taxes they owe. Well, that's called TurboTax. It's owned by Intuit. And Intuit, by the way, Microsoft tried to buy Intuit, and Bill Clinton, you opened up with a joke about the Attorney General and his prostitutes. Bill Clinton blocked Microsoft. Microsoft had Microsoft Word, Excel, and PowerPoint, and he needed accounting for American business. That would have been the most fundamental, foundational earthquake in all of small business of the world, and Bill Clinton blocked it because, I don't know, maybe Jeffrey Epstein told him on the island that it was. I'm dead serious. I mean, the guy, I mean, everybody talks about one political party being corrupt. I mean, the other one, I mean, it's like a binary star of just complete grotesque corruption. But I mean, that was my saving grace, that Microsoft would buy into it so I could finally know my cost. So here it is, 2020, and I got Open Dental, and I've got my accounting, and I've got Lori's moved on to be the president, Stacy's comptroller, Suzette. I mean, I got, and then I have an auditor come in once a month because we're going through $1 million a month. I mean, you need an auditor to make sure everything's going right. But it's in no better shape. Dentrix, oh my God, they'll never invite me to Utah for one of their users meetings. When I got the invitation, I'm like, they must have hired someone who doesn't even know I exist, because I cannot stand them more than, I mean, they're so bad. And I went there and I thought, whatever, I'm going. And I sat in the front row, and the guy, he opens up for the first 20 minutes. So he goes, "No, first of all, we know that 80% of all of our features are never used. So let's just, but we're going to go over them anyway." And it's like, imagine if Hyatt Regency had that, where you go to check in and a lady opens up a screen and there's like 4,000 buttons and all this crap. You need to be able to X out. If I don't use it, you need to be X out all that stuff, because it's overwhelming to some person that gets on there. And then you decide at Hyatt Regency that there's only 8 things you exactly want done. And that's the only 8 things. That's called a process, a workflow. So they call you up. What is your name? What is your phone number? Whatever you decide you need to know. And then you open up Dentrix. And when dentists tell me they love Dentrix, I mean, you might as well just tell me you have a head injury, you're not smart, you're drunk, you're young, you're green. But you couldn't be Heartland Dental running 1,000 offices. I mean, look at Stephen Thorne. He's not even a dentist. His dad's a dentist. And he realized, well, why am I going to go to school 8 years to be a dentist when I can hire one who had 8 years of school for $300 a day an hour? And he went and he bought what he thought was the best one at the time. But he told me, he says, it's shit. It's the best one out there. You're like the least drunk guy at the bar, so you can drive me home. But I just want to take it and have all the rights to it, because then I'm going to hire my own programmers and fix it. And he's been fixing it for 20 years. So those DSOs, they know what's going on, and my homies don't know anything. And that is the Achilles tendon that will kill fee-for-service private practice dentistry, because what they want to do is they want to believe they live in this bubble, that they can just do really good work like they do on their mom, and then add a nice profit that they're entitled to because they're a dentist, and here's their price. And we're in the middle of a pandemic. We're in the middle of, it's beyond a recession. This looks like a full-blown depression. You've lost 40 million jobs. Of those 40 million people, 30 million had dental insurance. We know the number one variable that associates going to the dentist is dental benefits. You're broke. It took 246 years to go from zero to $19 trillion in debt, and now we just passed $26 trillion. The dollar's fallen. All that money's going to have to be paid back. I've never seen I turned 58. This is August 25th, so I guess Saturday. I guess this is Tuesday. This Saturday I turned 58. I've never seen America with this bad of a hand in my entire life. And you're not going to come through this by not knowing your cost. Well, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to blindfold myself, put Q-tips in my ears, and I'm going to go forward with no awareness of my cost, my prices. I mean, it's just, and you can't fix stupid. You can't fix stupid. You tell a dentist all of this, and he's not even listening to me. He's thinking about TMJ. He's thinking, I wonder where the condyle is. And that's why I love my homies. I mean, they went to school 8 years to work with their hands to help me get out of pain. God dang, I love them. But the one thing they're not is business people. And they even tell you, well, I'm not a salesman. I don't want to sell dentistry. Exactly. You don't want to sell nothing. I love you, but you're a dentist. But they're a challenge.
It's so true. You need to know your numbers, especially right now when we're going through this pandemic, and you have to be so careful and know your break even points. And now, have you and your team been happier with Open Dental? Is
Oh
it
yeah,
yeah?
absolutely,
And
absolutely.
um, does it integrate with QuickBooks, or not quite there yet?
Well, the first thing I have to say about Open Dental is, my gosh, forget about any feature, whatever. The thing never crashes. I mean, because remember, I got 5 programmers. I hired a programmer in '98 to start Dental
Mm-hmm.
Town. So I've had 5 programmers for 20 some years. Ken, Angie, Nick, Larry, great people. But they're just like, whoever built this, it's a robust son of a. It's never crashed yet. That's something
Mm-hmm.
else. Um, but yeah, it's completely open. Anybody can do anything. But when I'm doing my podcast, and I'm love your podcast, and it's so smart to do because everyone knows when there's 8 billion people, it's not what you know, it's what you know and who you know. And
Mm-hmm.
if you have no social network, if you're not out there running for mayor in your own town, you're not going to build a practice. And if you're not out there networking with other people in dentistry, you're never going to be knowing what's going on. And every person I've ever networked with an IT person, Open Dental is the first thing they're aiming at because it's open. And then if you want to work with Dentrix or whatever, you got to get these APIs and you got to get all this bullshit as opposed to
Right.
just being open. And
I think
so,
that's such a good idea. You have an auditor that comes every month to review your finances and just
uh,
make sure everything is all the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed. That's such a great idea.
well, and when the economy as it gets worse and worse and worse, you're gonna have to you think you're a holy knight. I mean, you're thinking I'm Eric. I'm perfect. Yeah, well, if your plane crash in the mountaintop and you were freezing to death, you might be a cannibal. I mean, you and I might be looking at each other thinking, oh, who are we gonna kill? Let's get that old man, whatever. But as the economics deteriorate, there'll be a lot more pressures to take money. And you got to remember, when I was little, basically to steal money from you had to steal a check and you had to
Right.
forge it and you had to take it to the bank. Now it's all digital. They come in to pay the terminal and you can debit, you can move all this money around. And when people go to consultants, when they get a consultant to come in their office, obviously their business isn't doing too well. So when those consultants go in the office, half the time it's embezzling, half the time. And this is another reason I love dentistry. They're so funny because I post all the ones that make the news because if they're already in the newspaper, I'm not outing a dentist. Some people say, well, aren't you embarrassing? It's like, dude, it was on the front page of his newspaper in a big town. I'm sure the last person he's thinking about is Dental Town or Howard's Twitter account. But I mean, they usually are stealing like 150,000 a year. This one just the other day stole $8,000 over like 3 years. It's like, how many businesses can you steal 800,000? I mean, if you went and got a job at your local, Dairy Queen or your local Subway shop, do you think you could have stole $800,000 in 4 years? I mean, it's big time money. It's loose as a goose. And these dentists, they'll bank with Chase, but they don't have the Chase app on their phone.
Mm-hmm.
So what you got to do is break these things up. So where everybody's embezzling, and it's oftentimes the wife. I have to admit, the dentist is. I shouldn't say the wife. That's bad. I should say the spouse. Even though I don't have any examples of male spouses doing this to female dentists, but I have 20 of women doing this to male husbands. Is the marriage ain't going too good. So she starts moving $3, $4, $5,000 a month, always out of the country. It's always the Caribbean, Australia, somewhere. It's either Caribbean, Grand Caymans. In fact, Grand Caymans is getting UK's under a lot of flack internationally because that's where all the thugs are hiding their money. And she starts moving $5,000 a month. That makes the marriage a little better. I can put up with you being you for $5,000 a month on the side. And then by the time the dentist finds out, she files for divorce.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but anyway, so in the dental office, they're moving this around. So what happens is she gets the mail, she makes a deposit, then she makes the deposit. She's getting the mail to make the deposit. She's paying bills. Every time you add a function to her, she can do it all. And my gosh, you got to break that stuff up. So the checks, the canceled checks are mailed to the doctor's home. The cash deposits or whatever, you need receipts. I mean, there's just a big checklist. And then on Dentaltown, it's hard for me to get people to make courses on how to prevent this, because the opposite, it's a training course. And I remember when I put
right.
my first course up, and my God, it wasn't even, I think it was 6 months later. And some guy was like, "Thank you, Howard, for training my receptionist on how to do this."
Right.
And all I say is this: it's real easy to do if you just break up the task. You got to make it so it takes at least 2, hopefully 3. In my office, it's going to take Lori, Dawn, Stacy, Suzette, and my auditor, and me, if I can embezzle against myself. I could probably get that drunk to where I'd start embezzling against myself. But so for me, but we're a $1 million a month operation, so it's going to take you 5 people to pull this off. And so just break up the task. And then one more little caveat. Remember, your wife's your lover, but half the marriages fail. And the other big red flag in the dental office is you got a mom working up front, and the assistant is is her daughter. And so now we got a family in there. So it's one try. And then what do they do to play their odds? Well, if I'm stealing from you, and that could go bad. But if I'm sleeping with you, I only stole $100,000, but a divorce will be $1 million. Or, I like to party. If you wrote me a script for Vicodin and we had some fun one night or whatever. So they try to get you so deep in the quicksand that when you find out they've sold $500,000 from you, you'd pay them another $500,000 just to go away.
Just to make it go away.
Yeah, so I always tell dentists, if you're going to sleep with one person on earth other than the one you're supposed to sleep with, go to another continent. At least the other side of town. But really, 8 billion people, you chose the monkey in the same business as you are. I mean, it just you can't make some of this stuff up. It's just crazy.
So you're so right. You need to know your numbers, but you also have to protect your numbers, where you've created a system where you're splitting up roles, so the same person isn't opening the checks and depositing the checks. Also, they all know that there's an auditor that's part of the mix, so that creates, like a fear. But you're right. During hard times, it creates some people to maybe look for more opportunities to embezzle. So that is, and I'm sure a lot of dentists think this can't happen to me, and it sure can. So it's definitely something you have to be careful of. So I like the fact that you have all these people doing these different roles, and you have that auditor coming in. Just curious, so how many days a week do you still practice?
Everybody that owns 1,000, this was a tough thing for me. Everybody, like Rick Workman owns 1,000 Heartlands. He hasn't touched a patient in 25 years. Rick Kirshner owns 350 Comfort Dentals. He hadn't touched a patient in 25 years. Steve Thorne's not even a dentist. So it's always been a personal battle between the love. I mean, my favorite procedure in the world is always an extraction, impacted wisdom teeth. My second favorite's always molar endo. I really don't like the cosmetic stuff. I'm not that type of touchy-feely guy. Mm-hmm. Into veneer, because when I'm looking at veneer case, I'm thinking, God, you should leave all that enamel on your teeth. Don't touch it. Do some Invisalign and some bleaching. I don't want to peel all the enamel off your teeth and all that kind of stuff. But I've noticed in my 32 years, the more time I do clinical dentistry, that slows down every other project. Mm-hmm. And so I'm always the backup. So like I was in there 3 months. Just this year, our 2019, Monday through Friday, 8 to 5, because we were down a dock. So I'm a great bench. I'm a great for a sick. I like to do a little bit, but I'm getting old. I'm 58, and there are I just podcast the CEO of Dentsply Sirona, and Don Casey says there's 1 million dentists on Earth. So if you're pushing a lawnmower, this is the thing that's tough. You come out of school and you went to 8 years of school to push a lawnmower. And you're pushing on. I can still remember when I was 10, my dad went to Sears and it was $87. He loaned me the $87, bought me the lawnmower, and then I had to pay him back. And then for the interest, I had to mow our yard. And but then that was my lawnmower to go mow other yards. And back then, a yard was $3. And but you start realizing it's all fun at first. I mean, fire that thing up. I mean, it was the coolest thing in the world when you're 10. And still cool at 11 or 12 or 13, but eventually, by the time you get a car, you're like, I don't want to push the lawnmower. So, if you see, Dennis, they did that with hygienists. It's like, okay, cleaning, the first hygiene cases were amazing, but eventually you say, I'm going to let someone else do that, and I'm going to move over to fillings and crown and bridge. And what's so crazy about dentists, they remind me like my sisters. I love my 5 sisters more than anything. My mom's the greatest person in the world. But she's the craziest person in the world, and you love them anyway. The dentists are fighting dental therapists. I mean, like you love MOD composite. You know, the thing I hate the most about clinical dentistry is when you look on the schedule, and I got to go in there and see Eric, and he needs an MOD on 2, 3, 4, and 5. Damn, dude, that's just an hour of sit down, bust ass, hard work, do it right, no shortcuts, and then when it's over, to walk out of the room and go in the next room and do it again. And then you're telling me that it's exhausting. And you're telling me you're against dental therapists? Well, what else are you against? Toilet paper? I mean, my God, I'd rather have the hygienist doing all the cleanings, the therapist doing all the fillings. My gosh. In fact, the biggest offices I've seen is the oldest guy. He just does the recall exams and the new patient exams because he can talk and explain. Yeah. And then he'll convince you to do the treatment, and then he lays you off over to someone that's been out of school a couple years because they got great skills, but they couldn't sell any dentistry, and then they could only diagnose one tooth the first 5 years before they could move to quadrant, and then after, another 5, they'll go to right side, and it'll take them like 20 years just to sit down and do the whole mouth at one time. Yeah.
Yeah, it takes time, to hone those, your clinical skills and your verbal skills. It takes a lot. You have to do your 10,000 hours for clinical and on how to present, case presentation and how to talk to patients. Now, I wanted to ask you. So did you find that you're decreasing your chair time in clinical dentistry because you have so many other things going on, or was there any? Did you have any injuries or any?
No injuries, no that. The first 10 years, it was just, the first 5 was getting my FAGD. The second 5 was getting my MAGD, my Diplomat, International Congress, Oral Odontology, Fellowship, the Missions. For the first 10 years, for me, it was just learning how to do dentistry. I mean, every time I turned around to Pankey Institute, Ross, Nash, Spear, Coyce, whatever. So for 10 years, I was overwhelmed and overjoyed just learning how to do dentistry. But as I started, I got into the media side backwards because I started lecturing because I knew one thing more than the others. That is, I grew up, my dad owned 9 Sonic drive-ins, and I did all the franchise stuff with my dad, and I knew the business side. But I knew if I would go show them the little part that I knew, maybe more than them, the business side, that they would tell me what they knew. And they were sending me so much material. Here's another thing that is what dentists say and what they do. So they always complained about all the magazines because they were advertising. They called them dental rags. So I started the Farran Report in 1994, 30 pages, black and white, no advertising, $10 an issue, because this is what they want. 4 years, I had 4,000 subscribers at $10 a month. And then when I changed it to, okay, I'll send it to everybody, and you have ads, and now it goes to everyone. And like on Dental Town, I will post a link to a dental-related article from the New York Times, and every reply is like, you have to be a member. Can someone cut and paste this? Like, okay, you're a doctor. You know that overhead, the building and the people. So dentists want free journalism. They want people on their Delta board that that are dentists without a website or an MBA or whatever. They're always doing stuff like that. You know what I mean? And it's like they don't want to pay for New York Times, Wall Street Journal, New York Times, but they'll be the first one to say, "Oh, these dental rags, they are filled with advertisements." So they say one thing, they do another. And I was out there lecturing, and all these dentists were coming up and telling me this stuff. And I'm like, dude, that is awesome, because you're a real dentist, real world. And this isn't Beverly Hills, Key Biscayne, Manhattan stuff. This is middle day Ohio, America. And they'd write it up, and I'd lectured about once a week. So 4 weeks of lecturing, I always had about 30 pages of real people like you sending me stuff. And but the dentists are like, well, I'm not going to pay. Why would I pay $10 a month for unpolluted, true, from the mouth, here's the guy, not sponsored, and owning a dental magazine? I can tell you, I don't want to throw my competitors under a bus, but I mean, it's just advertorials. I mean, you can see, here's the ad, here's the article. Here's the ad, here's the article. The funniest one ever was when someone said, it's posted on Downtown. I don't want to throw this guy out because he's actually my friend. His article was the instructions from the bonding kit. I mean, it was just his whole article was the instructions and then his name. I mean, it is just
cut and paste.
So they don't want ads, but they won't pay for journalism. So the deal is, but going back to the original deal is, if you don't know your business, if you don't know your cost, and you're going into a pandemic, and if you don't know macroeconomics, because if you think $26 trillion doesn't mean anything, then I'm sure it doesn't mean anything to you, but it means 26 trillion things to me. You know what I mean?
So are you still very involved with the office, with the staff, and like the office meetings and the schedule, or do you have an office manager and a team that handles all that?
So like the office manager at Today's Dental, Dawn. I mean, she's been there 20 years. Lori, she reports to Dawn. Lori's been there 20 years. I mean, so when you get, I always say they turn into brothers and sisters after 5 years. Like when they've been with you 5 years and they're first class people. I mean, they're always there. They're always dependable. Every time you meet them, it's the same person. They're not moody, high and low. They don't do it one day, let you down the next. After 5 years they just know what they're doing. And I have to admit, everybody in management ends up being a workaholic, and that's why bonus systems don't work. Because when you take a dental assistant making $20 an hour, well, if she really cared about money, she wouldn't be a dental assistant for $20 an hour. I've had several dental assistants go back to school and become hygienists. I've had 2 dental assistants go off and become a dentist. So when people are attracted to money, they go chase it. And then you decide that you're going to do a bonus system for people who showed you no evidence. It'd be like you coming over and bringing me a big fresh plate of kale. What evidence have I shown you that I like kale? I mean, I'll take a beer and a Snickers bar. I'll take some popcorn and a hot dog. But these people have shown no interest in money, and bonuses don't work. So when people make it to management, they're workaholics. Like, you always tease about him, like, he'll never retire. He loves what he does. So when you find people like that, and you know that because, like, you'll send them an email on a Saturday and they'll answer on a Saturday, even though the protocols you don't have to answer till Monday. I mean, they love work, and they would rather answer that email than go watch, some, TMZ or something. And they're well-rounded, they're balanced, they have family, whatever, but they like to work. It doesn't mean that you work 160 hours a week, but they love the work. They love the challenge. They love the game. People love things they're good at. Like if you could shoot scratch golf, you'd probably play 3 times a week. So basically when you gotta, it's all HR. Like right now, sports are rolling out again. And my gosh, if you own a basketball team, you just want the 5 best players on the field. You're not talking about the stadium, the marketing, the name, the branding, your social media. When dentists are sitting around talking about TikTok, I can't think of anything less important than trying to get to know more about TikTok. I'd want to know about your office manager, who's answering the phone. I'm data driven. How many incoming calls do you get a month? How many are converted to an appointment? If you have 3 people answering the phone, is there a variance there? Presenting treatment, if you present 100 fillings, how many get filled? I don't like to track Invisalign and bleaching and bonding because I'm a real doctor. Real doctors don't think you need to have your hair tinted and your eyelashes extended. A real doctor is, do you have diabetes, heart disease, or cancer? So on the real doctor stuff, that's non-debatable. Just data driven, and in all this data, can you deliver dentistry faster, easier, higher quality, lower in costs in a smaller, more succinct way? And that's the game, and that's the challenge. And I'd rather play that than Monopoly or chess. The game I hate the most with my sisters was Risk. I swear to God, those games could go. I mean, you'd start them like Friday after school at like 3:30, and you're still going at 1 o'clock in the morning. I mean, what's that?
Yeah, those Risk took hours to play.
And Asia's going to win when it's over anyway. So why don't you just, if you're not Asia, just quit.
So now, like you were saying, HR is so important, and hiring the right people and the people that love to work. That's not so easy to do, right? Finding the right people. It sounds like you have a great team that's been with you for a long time. Did that all start with you and the culture that you set and the setting your expectations? How did you create such a great and dedicated team?
So like when you're in a race, like shout out to Usain Bolt. He's the only person I met that can run faster than me, and but he's faster relative to the person he's running against, right? I don't think he's faster than a cheetah or a flying eagle. So in your team, it's got to be open and transparent. And so in the team, who turned out to be the best? I never made the top 3 on treatment plan presentation. I never made the top 3 on HR. And so I'll go into a dental office and the dentist is really, really struggling with HR. And he's had this office 20 years and all kinds of problems. And I'm just sitting here amazed thinking, when I found out I suck in something, I wasn't thinking 20 years later that I'm still a really good golfer. I mean, I knew at a really young age I was really no good at golfing, and I just had a feeling I'd probably never dunk a basketball either. And so if you really suck at something and you got 5 people on the team, why don't you let someone else do it? But I think what dentists do is, since they always made A's, since they're a doctor, since they're always the smartest person in the room, they just think they could do everything, especially if it's intellectual. They know they can't run faster than Usain them. They know they can't golf better. But if it's intellectual, they're thinking, dude, I know physics. I know, I can do this. I'm that smart. Well, evidently, it's an art and a science. Just because you're good in geometry and math doesn't mean you can know people, and some people are better than others. I've watched several dentists do interview for a new staff, and I swear to God, the entire interview, the doctor talked about his journey, his office, and I'm sitting there like, how long is this going to go on? And then when it was over, I mean, she just sat there smiling, and he loved her because he was talking about himself, so he's secreting endorphins for himself. And also, I also think in healthcare with HR, like we already know, I'm in Arizona where a quarter of the state is Indian reservations, right? Well, they already know that a Native American Indian doctor or dentist will diagnose you better than someone who's not of that ethnicity. There's tons of research. Like if you were a female, and look how the market drifted that. When I was little, all the gynecologists were men, and all their customers were women. Well, now they're matched up level. And it's just obvious. And so if you're a man and you're in an office with 12 women, I can just tell you that just the fact that you're not even a woman, you could not be as intuitive to this tribe of 12 women as good as a woman could. And there's just people that have a sense for it, a knack for it. And I've got a lot of people that have that because that's, we've honed that. So what happens is, as the founder, my motto is, we're going to have a home here in Phoenix. And then as far as vision, my vision is, okay, we're going to go to LA. And we're not going to Vegas, Denver, Albuquerque, or Tucson. So we're going to go to LA. But once we decide we're going to LA, I'm not going to be the one that decides, are we going to walk, fly, rent a bus, are we going to get a hotel? You got operational logistics. So my job is the vision, and then I have to realize that every single human being dies. No one has escaped death on earth. So you have to know that you're going to die. So then if you don't know your transition to death, you don't know where you're going. So the founder has to take his vision and transfer it to the founding team, so that when he dies, the team still has it. So now, 32 years later, there's a bunch of people 20 years plus that we all agree on the same values and you know, where we want to do, what we don't believe in. And it doesn't mean it's right or wrong. Your office might listen to country music and we might like rock and roll. You might go to bowling alleys and we go golfing, miniature golfing. That doesn't matter, but your core objectives have been met. And now, I'd say after 20 years, you couldn't get hired if you didn't fit that deal. So that's why someone like Sam Walton can die, and it goes on. Sol Price, the Price Club, can die, and it goes on. I mean, if Ray Kroc died and they had to close down all the McDonald's, he really didn't add value. He just made a bunch of noise. So most of us are just making a lot of noise, beating our drums, making noise, getting through this 100-year thing we called life. But for long-term increases in productivity, you got to be a part of something that lasts longer than your life. And that's, I think, the great challenge and the great value add. I was very grateful when I was born. I tell my boys that all the time. Whenever they're bad-mouthing America, I say, yeah, but I never heard you bitching about all the freeways and interstates and national parks and Disneylands. In fact, I kind of thought I could hear like 1,000 times where you screamed, yay, I love this. So now you're getting older. Now you're 30, 28, 26, 24, and don't ever tell me that you think you should move to Canada, Australia. You stay here. If there's something you don't like with America, take your damn gloves off and fix it, just like your forefathers did. I mean, America's a piece of work. Every person's a piece of work. When people look at these outrageous things that politicians doing, I don't know one honest dentist who can't tell me some outrageous thing he did in his lifetime, in his youth, and some of them it might have been last year. So we're all humans. We're all animals. We all do stupid stuff. But the long-term trend is, just stick to it. Life is a marathon, not a sprint.
So you're finding good people. You're setting the culture and the vision. With this team that you've assembled, you're delegating because you can't do it all yourself. As dentists,
well, you can't do it when you're dead. You can't. So when dentists say, I can't delegate, I'm like, well, how did you learn how not to die? Oh, you mean you're just going to, okay, so you're going to die, and then it's all, I mean, do you think name a dentist who dies, and it makes the news the day, remember that song when we were little, The Night the Music Died? Mm-hmm. What was that about? Buddy Holly died. Okay, and everybody's like, music died. I mean, Buddy Holly went down an airplane. Well, Buddy was a hell of a guy, and I loved his glasses, but he wasn't music, and it's still going on.
Still going.
And when Carl Misch died, dental implantology didn't blink. When Brandmark died, dental implantology, it didn't even blink. In fact, the day Ray Kroc died, I'll never forget, the stock actually went up for the day. There wasn't one Wall Street investor that thought that thing was living on his coattails. I mean, he made the perfect system. What I loved about Ray is, the first McDonald's 10 to 20, you know what he would do? He would go out there and lay the concrete foundation floor flat, get all the employees from the first 10, all the architects have to come out and draw the plans that they designed, and then he wanted to see what the 16-year-old real kids thought of this. And they'd sit there and say, yeah, and that's why every time I get the mold and I turn around, dumbass bumps into me running a pair of fries up, and that's why all the food spills are right here. And Ray's like, exactly. And he got them all together, and he did that on 11, 12. It's all a game about logistics. It's like checkers and chess, same board, same number of pieces, but a different process rules. And dentists, they don't have job descriptions. They don't have processes. Dentrix can brags that 80% of their shit software is never used, but they sure leave it there for clutter and give you no way to X out of all that stuff so you can take someone off the street and ramp them up to be able to answer the phone, check someone in, check someone out easily. You know, I mean, if they're on Dentrix or EagleSoft, I'll bet you my Lexus, I can walk in there, find the oldest person that's used it the longest, and point to one button that she doesn't even know what the hell it is.
Yeah.
And then you can go to the report generator, and it'll prove to you it's never been opened. And Dentrix will clap. Oh,
right.
We're doing good. And then they'll get all these people that are dentists to write glowing articles for it. And that's why I did the Farran report without advertising, so you wouldn't have to listen to their hot air bullshit. And the dentists are like, well, I'm not paying $10. But hey, that guy's talking bullshit. Okay, you want your cake and you want to eat it too.
So I wanted to go back to one of the things you said about bonuses, and now with your staff, such as your hygienists, do you recommend more of an hourly wage or a adjusted production system? Do you think that's changed now in a lot of offices because of COVID? Because we need to be as productive as possible in that hour of time. And like in our office, we've increased our hygiene time, but our staff has the same wage. We haven't dropped their wages, so our overhead's up, our costs are up, our chair time is down, but the wages are the same. Do you find that a lot of offices are going to from an hourly pay system for hygienists to a more of a bonus production style of system?
Okay, those are great questions. And the person who's already demonstrating the most intensity that they want to have a good living is a doctor who spent 8 years of his life trying to get this certificate because he knew, that it would be a better financial future for his family having that than a job at Subway. So he spent 8 years. So you pay them on a percentage, but you can't pay him on a straight percentage. You got to pay him versus the base, because the whole media world is aware of all these people. You see it a lot in air conditioning and mechanic shops where the person are only paid commission. So he doesn't want to tell you it's your car battery. He wants to tell you it's your alternator. And then they have undercover spies that know there's nothing wrong with the alternator. And sure enough, the guy charges you $1,000 to replace it, and sometimes they don't even replace it. So that is a really bad PR baseline motive in a world of internet, social media. So you pay them a percentage versus the base pay for the doctors. Now, the hygienists, we tried this, and we tried paying them bonus and hourly, but their variance is too small. So go back to statistics. I can have half my morning fall apart. But in the afternoon, I get a toothache, and it's a root canal build-up and crown for $2,000. And the next person's a bridge or whatever the hell. The variance is huge. I've had several days where nothing happened in the morning, and I made goal in the afternoon. Mm-hmm. And so the hygienist, if they lose a recall, cleaning, exam, and x-rays, what is she going to do with the rest of her schedule that's all just recalls, clean? There's no variance to make up. So she has a loss. She can't make it up. And it's very demoralizing. I've watched it on Dental Town. We've talked about it since 1999. So we pay them hourly. Now, as far as the bonus, though, that's a great question. The bonus, do you bonus the assistants, reception staff? Yeah, a light one for, okay, I'll give everybody a Benjamin if we collect this, and I'll give them 2 Benjamins if we collect this, and 3 Benjamins. Now, think about this for a minute. This is Benjamins. These are cash. These are things. If you give a dental assistant a paycheck and she has to deposit in her bank, maybe her husband's going to be aware of it. Maybe they've already decided it's got to go. When you give someone a $100 bill or a $200 bill or a $300 bill, that's fun money. That's play. That's morale lifting. She loves it. But if you want to do and we don't take taxes out of that, and people always say things like, well, how do you legally take taxes out? Well, maybe you shouldn't be obsessed with all the rules the mob plays to shake you down and steal all your money. I mean, if your best idea is to cooperate with the mob, then why don't you go work for the mob? I see the government around the world from the beginning of time as the source of almost all the problems, never the solution. And so then when you want to talk about a serious bonus system, that would be to my president, my office manager, in Dental Town magazine, the salespeople, in Today's Dental, the dentist producers. I would rather give the whole bonus to one office manager who just makes shit happen and it gets done. Because if I have one person that's just, man, loves her job, making bank, I mean, my gosh, I'd rather have that one person than throwing a bunch of ding-dongs and Twinkies at a bunch of assistants and hygienists or whatever. And,
Yeah, I could see that system could cause competition and resentment. Let's say a hygienist schedule fell apart, and another hygienist is crushing it in her schedule, and it just could create unnecessary resentment between or competition between
and
the
furthermore,
staff members.
these dentists, they always talk about bonuses and wanting to build up their hygiene system, and they still can't even tell me how much net income they make after a cleaning exam. In fact, I did the math for one dentist, and it took me like all day because he was asking if he should go from one dentist to two, and his data, is all in charts and it's all, all this stuff. And it took me about the day to prove to him that at his fifth hygienist, he would finally declare bankruptcy. So, he wants to explain, usually when you're in a pit, you should stop digging. When you dug yourself in a hole, stop digging and get out. And dentists don't even know how much you're losing on this procedure. So they say, well, hell, I don't even know I'm losing $10 a cleaning. So let's get two hygienists. And this is where the DSOs, I'm in Arizona. So the governor passed a law that they'll accept any professional license from any state. So Arizona is ground zero for DSOs. 18% of the DSOs are in Arizona. And my gosh, 5 states aren't even 1%. And obviously everyone can see they have better locations, better signage, better marketing, TV, radio, I mean, they're just doing all of that the best. And I think during the pandemic, they're the only ones hiring. So, Dental Town had 1,000 offices for sale in the classifieds for the last 20 years. Now that's gone up to 2,000 because a lot of old people just say, that enough's enough, I'm out of here. And the 5,000 ads for you to come get a job are now only 1,000, and it's only DSOs. So the DSOs are, at first during this economic crunch, you're always worried about who's leveraged and who will run out of cash. And that is still at the front of my mind because the Federal Reserve printed $3 trillion in March. That's the whole meaning of your stock market bubble. If you think it's real and has gravity, then I'd like two words for you. Buffett index, where the value of the Wilshire 5,000 publicly traded stocks should be the same as the GDP. It should be about an even par. And a lot of times the stocks will get down as low as 70%. Now it's at 1.77. Those stocks are worth 71% more than the country that those companies exist in. Now, I loved it when Warren Buffett was selling airlines and you had your typical financial clowns on CNBC and all that saying how, are his days over? Is he too old for a new guy? Oh, shut up. And now it's already, he's going to bury them. But these are going to be rough financial times, and they're going to get much more rough before we're fastest. And go back to the last one, Lehman's Day. That baby was 2008, and it was a setback for a couple of years. And this one is far worse than that. It's far worse than that. So going forward, without knowing your numbers, without knowing your cost, without making cash king, quit your stupid spending, quit eating out, quit doing all this stuff, and start growing your business.
Yeah, it's so important, especially now more than ever, to know your numbers and to live below your means and save cash. Now, have you heard that a lot of dentists that were close to retirement or, were getting, towards the end, that they just said, I'm just going to sell to a DSO?
Oh, my God. I'm hearing this from practice brokers. In fact, they're so smart. It was back in December. What was the deal? So December, I spoke to a group of 100 practice brokers, and they were already, they were just looking at the math about how many old people were wanting to sell. and there was just going to be this huge number of people wanting to sell their practice. Then comes the pandemic, and it all comes down to this. If you never got divorced and you're a 60-year-old dentist in the richest country in the world, you can retire. Now, every time you traded in your wife and split all your money in half and rebuilt it, that pushes back your retirement. But I know so many 60-year-old dentists on their first wife, and they're like, I'm not going to go do all this crap. And then they put up for sale. And if you don't want to buy it, a DSO will. So the liquidity in the urban areas is pretty much spot on. Now, the rural areas are illiquid because the DSOs won't go there, because the millennials won't go there. They don't have a workforce. But I take that same stat where the DSOs have already shown they're not going rural, because you got to look at when a person says something, what is their framework? What is their age? Where are they coming from? When you walk out of school 24 and someday you want to get married and have kids, well, you're not going to move to a town of 3 people when you could move to a town of 3 million. So finding a mate, girls are far less like, they're 2/3 of the DSO workforce, but when you pick them off one by one, what do they say? Well, they're a girl. And I say, well, if I go to an implant class and I meet the love of my life and he's already got a practice somewhere, I want liquidity. I want to be able to move. And if I found the love of my life, I'd move to Kathmandu, Nepal to go there. So they want options. And that's another reason they don't go rural, because they want more options. They are meeting other doctors. Look at how girls marry versus boys. Girl dentists always marry an equivalent. Their husband's a dentist, doctor, physician, lawyer. Then you go to meet the male dentist. Where did you meet your wife? Oh, at the strip club. Have you ever been to Bourbon Street? On the, it's like they just fall for the peacock optical illusion every time. The girls have a brain, and their husbands can carry them through 3 kids, an early retirement, whatever. And that's why I tell people in dental school that everything you learn about financial planning, they don't even talk about financial planning. They talk about all this numbers crap. It's like, well, if you never get married, you'll never get divorced. Never have a kid, you'll never have to pay for college. It's pretty simple that if you never got married, never have any kids, you're going to be a shitload richer than if you marry someone and have kids. And then when you do marry someone, well, if the average person has 2, I don't know what the official stats are, but in Phoenix, Arizona, I bet the average LDS woman is somewhere between 4 and 5. I mean, so if you're going to marry a stay-home woman that has 6 kids, then why are you buying this dental practice that only does $750,000 a month and is only going to spend on this, when there's this one over here that's doing $1.4 million and you got 5 kids, buddy? So why? I mean, you wouldn't buy a smaller house with a bigger family. But dentists do. I don't know what they're thinking. I mean, if you got a really big family, you need to buy a really big house and a really big practice to pay for it all. And if you're a bachelor, you could live in your car and you could buy the smallest practice, work 2 days a week. But I'm always talking about income streams. And these dentists who either for some reason just want to make a lot of money, or they've married a stay-home that's going to have a boatload of kids, you shouldn't be looking at any dental offices under $1 million, because you've already made a lot of decisions that you're going to burn more than that in cash.
Yeah, and I would say, to the the ones that are in school or just getting out of school, that rural is, if they, I would say, go where the work is. Find that job, whether it's rural where they have to drive an hour and commute an hour. Do what you have to do, work weekends, work nights, especially when you're coming out with this much debt. You need to get a job and pay those bills. And sometimes rural is the way to go. Although it's interesting that you said that most of the DSOs are the ones that are hiring, but they're not rural because of the lack of workforce. So it's a little bit of a,
and that's why I use the same math to predict their limit. I mean, I look at them. They can't keep anybody 5 years. So if you got 6,000 graduates a year for 5 years, they got a 30,000 work pool. But then you listen to their speeches, and they're linear thinking that they're just going to, we've gone from this to this to this. And they start telling you the date that DSOs will be more than 51% of the workforce. It's like, okay, well, you can't even show me a smaller version of that today. What I see is she's been out of school 5 years. You get 2 out of 3 are girls, and every year she changes jobs because she's not happy.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you can't if they think they're going to be the next Walgreens, well, I know why they can be the next Walgreens. I remember when I was lecturing in Paris, France, and I realized that when you go to the doctor on your national health insurance and he writes you a prescription, he loads it into your debit card, your card, and then you go to an ATM machine, stick it in there, and a bottle comes down, the pills come down, a label, and I'm looking at this machine, and it's made right here in Scottsdale, Arizona. I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
no way. And they say, yeah, well, it's illegal here because that's all that trade unions do. The only thing the Arizona State Board of Dental Examiner does is keep your prices propped up. If they went away, you'd have dentists moving in here from Mexico, Asia, India, the whole nine worlds, and the price of dentistry would plummet. So all boards, when two, Adam Smith even said it, when two or more men gather in the same place, it's to conspire about how to raise their prices against the populace. And he didn't have any really good things to say about governments or large business. Everybody thinks he's the father of free enterprise. He didn't have pretty much any respect for the business or ethics of anyone. They just attribute his whole book to the invisible hand. And I swear to God, he only said that one time in all of his work. But my gosh, orthodontists, of course, they would be automated today if it was legal. It's illegal to do that. So like, well, going in a mouth and getting you relaxed and having you trust me to give you a shot while I'm touching you and then do all the work. So you got to trust me. I can't hurt you. It's got to look great. If you think that's going to be done by a wham bam, thank you ma'am, throw them out assembly line of dentists, you're out of your freaking mind and you don't know anything about dentistry. Dentistry is a really tough job. And my dad warned me about this. When I told him I want to be a dentist, he looked at me like, a dentist? What the hell would you want to do that for? He goes, you see how happy they are when they come into Sonic? He goes, when they order a foot-long chili cheese dog and onion rings, I couldn't beat the smile off their face with a crowbar. You tell anybody they're going to go to the dentist, and they're scared. I remember one time I felt so sorry for one of my boys. I don't remember which one it was. It was in his kindergarten, but the parent had to go in on career day, and I said, I'm a dentist, and one kid started to cry, and the teacher had to jump up. No, he's not going to hurt you. He's not going to touch you. And then I'm looking at my kid, and he's all confused, like, the hell does my dad do? I mean,
Yeah,
my
right.
God. And of course, you follow the firemen, the policemen, all the people with
Yeah.
cool jobs. And here's crazy man. So I'm a dentist. And the kids are already crying. So,
So actually, you mentioned the legality and dentistry being such a a hard profession. I had a question for you. Do you think that dentists will ever be able to form a union and create such things as like a good health plan for dentists, or because right now you can't, you're not supposed to be able to talk to your colleague down the street about what they're paying or what they're getting paid for a procedure for dental because it's considered collusion.
oh
We're all
my
supposed to
God.
be in
Yeah.
competition.
I mean,
um,
oh yeah. I mean, I even posted the Delta meeting, the lecture when I was out, and the slides were. But anyway, so here's the CEO, and he's showing you how that you make $9 out of every 100, the most with Delta versus the other 23. But all the other 23, there's no names on them. It's just X, number one, number two. There's no transparency. Whenever there's no transparency, there's a good reason. They don't want you to see their hand.
right.
And I'm able to see their hand a lot because there's like 39 different deltas. I've had some of them on the show. And when you're a journalist, I've been a journalist since 1994. A lot of dentists I don't know if they understand that, but I have a media company. I've written a monthly column. So people send me stuff all the time. I have sources, things like that. It's a serious deal. But yeah, well, anything's possible. I mean, France, their dentists have unionized and gone on strike. If you go to Dental Town and type in union, yeah, all kinds of people are striking. I'm not saying I believe in that or I'm for that, but that stuff's absolutely happened. But it already is the biggest union. Like, so when Americans talk about unions, first of all, they have no idea what they're talking about. Let me check this. First of all, when Americans talk about unions, they have no idea what they're talking about. The biggest union is for pilots. Well, those guys make 150, 200. The old ones 300,000 a year or more. They always think of the working man, the out there with hammer and nails. The poor people don't have enough money to pay union dues, so they don't have any unions. All the unions only represent the richest workers in their class. And the biggest union in the world, in America, is the healthcare union, where they went to each state and they got the state dental board to be able to be the judge, the jury, and the executioner. Where we have to license the school. When you come out, we have to license you, and when you're practicing, we can take your license away. And that's what keeps out all the foreign trained dentists, that keeps the schools to a minimum. Now today, look how upset the dentists are when they violate that. Right there, it's on the PR Newswire that Georgia School of Orthodontics receives approval to double class size, celebrates second graduating class of orthodontic residents. So here is this guy saying, we feel very strongly that the public needs better access to more affordable orthodontic care. We will now be able to educate and train more orthodontic specialists who can provide exceptional in-person care to large patient populations, said Georgia School of Orthodontics Board Chairman Dr. Randy Klunder. Now, he comes from that school. On the same board is Gasper Lazaris, who was the founder of Orthodontic Centers of America. And when Gasper did his IPO for that, he spent a ton of money opening up 3 other ortho schools, because he knew if he's going to employ orthodontists, well, I don't want to if there's just 2 of you, you're going to raise your price. So these guys have been, now I guarantee you, the American Association of Orthodontists out of St. Louis, do you think this is good news to their union or bad news?
Yeah, it's not good. Yeah.
Yeah. So see, they're already a union. The doctors have the biggest union. And then look in Arizona. It's tough for me because you know, I'm across the street from the Guadalupe Indian Reservation. There's 25,000 people there. There's not one dentist there. It's 5,000 Indians and 20,000 illegals, whatever the hell that means, because I know that I did my family tree. I'd never let my boys talk ever shit about immigration, because we were all part of the Irish diaspora. And I worked that all the way back, showing my boys, you weren't invited, and you came here before there even was an Ellis Island. And you weren't invited, and you did a lot of nasty things when you got here. Talk to the American Indians. Talk about slavery in the South. I mean, this country, the history is full of this stuff. But the dental unions, when they catch someone from Mexico operating in Guadalupe, they will come out there, the police, the mob. They'll kidnap him, something your mother told you not to do. They'll put him in a cage. I thought that was wrong. And they'll deport him, if not put him in jail. And what was he doing? A $20 filling on some little girl that can't afford to go to a board-certified pediatric dentist because she doesn't have $500. See, it's one thing to say the board has determined that Eric is appropriately trained and qualified. He passes all of her deals. And Eric is an approved licensed dentist in the United States of America. And then the consumer can say, I want that. And then another consumer say, well, Eric wants $500 and I don't have a dime, and he doesn't speak my language, and I see someone over there and he'll do it for 20 pesos. And then Eric says, oh, well, I just got out of church and I just got done reading the Bible, and we shall kidnap you and throw you in jail and arrest you and kick your ass out of this country, because anybody treating a child for disease from a good dental school from where this girl's family used to live 20 years ago, it's very immoral. And they owe it, and it's just so the whole thing's it's a joke.
All right, so
and a scam.
I wanted to ask you one final question, and I wanted to do it in my impersonation of Howard Farran's voice. So here we go. I've been listening to a lot of your, hundreds of your podcasts, and all right, here we go. She's 25 and she just got out of dental kindergarten school. She just opened up an office and doesn't know her numbers. Her staff wants a raise every time the earth goes around the sun. She's thinking about buying that $100,000 laser. she's about to marry the guy with the big biceps she met at Waffle House, and she has to keep one eye on costs and one eye on the patient, just like Sam Walton and Southwest Airlines.
Ah, that
So,
was awesome. That was
yeah, but
awesome.
now have you ever gotten a call from the president of Waffle House, and have they ever asked you like, what's the deal? We have great people that come here too.
I went to dinner with a guy that owns 8 of them out here, and the boys thought it was the most fascinating, because I always think, if you're gonna go to dinner, why not learn some of the boys? And he was talking us through the journey about how, because I asked the obvious question, what the hell happened to Denny's? Denny's was the biggest thing, and it faded away in White Waffle
Mm-hmm.
House, and he was talking to me about how they focused on quality ingredients, and the management at Denny's and things like that kept trying to save money on the food. Next thing you know, a waffle tastes rubbery. The eggs, you think they're fake. And he said, the Waffle House, we have the Mercedes-Benz ingredients, and that's
Mm-hmm.
why you come back and we sell food. But I love the Waffle House. First of all, and that's another true thing. Have you realized the best food always has a picture on the menu? If you're at a restaurant and there's not a picture of the food on the menu, you're going to pay 10 times more money for a bunch of shit. Only go to restaurants with pictures on the
With
menu,
pictures,
and you'll get the
yeah.
best food for the lowest price.
That's right. Well, thanks so much for joining me. That was on for the Deals for Dentists podcast. It was a pleasure. Such an honor to have you. Any last final nuggets for advice for those young dentists out there that you want to finish up with?
Yeah, easy, man. Just work hard and hustle. You live in the richest country. It's been the richest country for 2 centuries. It's got 1/3 of a billion people. They're not going to go away or just get lost in the desert for 40 years and not know what to do. This country's got a lot of smart people, but the people that spend more than they make from age 25 to 65, they're still buying cars and houses on mortgage. So you got to draw the line someday where you say, I'm going debt free on consumption. Now, if you want to borrow a bunch of money for investment, it's the same. I'll even show you how that doesn't work in investments. Like, some people will go buy land and they'll say, well, that's going to be a good investment. Okay, well, every month you're sitting on that land. It ain't giving you any dimes. But if you would have bought an investment of, say, a bond, or you bought a business, so go buy an asset that makes money, and quit spending all your money on consumption, houses, cars, eating out, and then hustle. I mean, hustle. It's absolutely goes without saying that the people who work the most hours make the most luck. I mean, Edison, it took him 30,000 attempts to make a light bulb. And everybody says, oh, he's a genius. He discovered the light bulb. Well, how many geniuses, how could you be a genius if it took you 30,000 tries? I think we have enough evidence to say Edison was a hard-working, normal man. I mean, Einstein, when he got his Nobel Prize, he took the $1 million and gave it to his wife, who was his cousin, his first cousin, and said, just go away. I don't want anybody to find out. I mean, they're just hardworking people who hustle. There's nothing magic about them. So get out there and work. And if you can work like no dentist has for 10 years, you're going to live like no American has for 30 years. So you're a doctor in America. Work hard, hustle. If you spend money, it's investing in yourself, your business. It's not going on vacations and travels. And if you need a Mercedes Benz, somebody didn't love you. You need validated. I love you. I'll validate you. You have been validated on Dentistry Uncensored. And it was done on dealsfordentist.com. You got validated for half off just because you went for dealsfordentistry.com. But you don't need validated with Mercedes-Benz and all that stuff. Just get out there and work and hustle and feel good about what you're doing. And if you don't feel good about what you're doing, then stop doing it and just do things that make you proud to be you. Work on a better version of yourself every day. I mean, you imagine how excited Walt Disney must have been, proud of himself, seeing the kids getting so excited that when he opens his gates, they run in. Imagine how exciting it is when you can get someone out of pain, and this kid can sleep with a pulpotomy. Just feel good about what you're doing. Only do things that make you feel good, and just work hard and hustle. And here's the last thing I'm going to say, that, when you look at someone who's been alive 80 years. They've had good years, bad years. Some decades were better than others. But you know what? This is 2020, And if you were ever going to pick a year to be at your best, it's going to be from right now to the end of 2021. This isn't the time to go find your navel, to give up, to be depressed, to be sad. I mean, if you were ever going to be the best version of yourself, it's right now. You're in the middle of war, baby. You're getting shot at by a virus, the economy, inequality, every sin America's ever done, from the Indians to slavery to inequality and police brutality. And the shit show is going down right now. So the best time to wake up early and be the first one to bed and the first one to rise and give it all you got is right now. Just do it now. We can get drunk and be lazy and do stupid things 5-10 years from now, but right now I need your best. You need to be at your best. So give it all you got for the rest of this year and all of next year. This game's got 18 more months to go, and when this game is over and you won, you're still going to have a couple of black eyes and a missing tooth when this is over.
That's so true. Well, thank you so much for joining us on the Deals for Dentists podcast. It was such an honor, Howard, and I think you've helped so many young dentists out there, and just keep on doing what you do, because it's awesome.
Eric, I want you to know that my oldest son is named Eric, and he was named after you. So thank you for being the role model that I named my son after.
You're welcome.
Pleasure. All right. Have a great day, buddy.
Okay, you too. Take care.